2018. I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Zoning Board to be open. Adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on January 9th, 2018, a copy of said notice was mailed to the Asbury Park Press and the Tri-Town News. Second, on January 9th, 2018, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on January 9th, 2018, said notice was posted in the office of the Zoning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code and your safety, please be advised that this facility is designed with 2 emergency exits, which are on your right at the front and rear of the meeting room. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77.
Thank you, Eileen. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Mr. Amata.
Present.
Mr. Hughes has been excused. Mr. Mertens.
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Here.
Mr. Posh.
Here.
Mr. San Clemente.
Here.
Mr. Orozco.
Here.
Mr. Moretti.
Here.
Chairman Nansen.
Here.
You have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Tropoli, you swear in the professionals, please.
I swear the testimony you'll give this
Thank you, Tom.
evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Right, the record should reflect that Mr. Cunliffe, Mr. Mallon, Ms. Beam, and Ms. Howard, Mr. Howard, I should say, have all been sworn, sorry about that, all sworn for the evening.
Thank you, sir. Approval of minutes, regular meeting, August 13, 2018. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Moretti. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Mr. Amata.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Posh.
Yes.
Mr. Orozco.
Yes.
Mr. Moretti.
Yes.
And Chairman Nansen.
Yes.
Minutes are approved. Thank you.
Minutes for regular meeting, August 27th, 2018. Eligible voters, Ramada, Hughes, Mertens, O'Donnell, Paz, San Clemente, Moretti, and Nansen. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Moretti. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Amata.
Yes.
Mr. Mertens.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Posh.
Yes.
Mr. San Clemente.
Yes.
Mr. Moretti.
Yes.
Chairman Nansen.
Yes,
Motion carries. Thank you.
thank you. Vouchers,
No vouchers this evening.
correspondence.
The only correspondence I have is for case number, I forget, but it's for, hold on. It's for somebody that withdrew their application for B-Bar B. They haven't even been before the board yet, but just to let you know, that case was withdrawn.
Without prejudice?
Yeah, they didn't really say, so I guess it's without prejudice.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Okay, resolutions, case number BA 16-12X, New York SMSA DBA Verizon Wireless, resolution granting a one-year extension of time. Eligible voters are Mata, Hughes, O'Donnell, Paz, San Clemente, Orozco, and Nansen. You have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell,
Second.
second by Mr. Orozco. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Amata.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Posh.
Yes.
Mr. San Clemente.
Yes.
Mr. Orozco.
Yes.
Chairman Nansen.
Yes.
Resolutions memorialized. Thank you.
Resolution for case number BA 17-15, Seafree Plaza LLC, resolution granting use variance, preliminary and final major site plan with ancillary bulk variance. Eligible voters, Armada, Hughes, O'Donnell, Paz, San Clemente, Orozco, and Nansen. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell,
Second.
Second by Mr. Moretti.
Mr. Moretti, you're not
Mr.
eligible
Moretti.
to vote.
I'm not eligible?
No, no,
I'll
sir.
second it.
Seconded by Mr. Amata.
Thank you.
We have a roll call, please.
Mr. Amata,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Posh,
Yes.
Mr. St. Clemente,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Chairman Nansen.
Yes,
Resolutions memorialized.
thank you.
Thank you. Did I give you
Okay. Applications before the board, case number BA 18-16, Heath Johnson. Bulk variance for chicken coop in rear yard setback. Application of Heath Johnson as applicant and Heath and Sonny Johnson as owner seeking bulk variance relief for chicken coop in rear yard setback on premises known as Block 5401, Lot 11.09, 21 Cindy Court. Expiration date November 24th, 2018. Welcome, sir.
How are you?
Sir, before you begin, I'd like to swear you in and to place your name on the records afterwards. So raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you'll give this evening be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Mr. Your name for the record, please.
Heath Johnson.
Mr. Johnson, can you just raise that mic, because you have to speak right into it, thank you.
Better?
Better,
All right.
thank you.
What can we do for you tonight?
So, I'm applying just to get a variance to put a small chicken coop in the rear of my property. On the survey that I provided, which would be, Exhibit A9, I made a little circle where we want to put it. This would be the farthest away from my immediate neighbors. There's a 50-foot environmental conservation easement from my existing fence to the property next to mine. So I know the ordinance for the township is 75 feet on all sides for my zoning type for A3. So what I'm looking to do is put it in that corner, because number one, it'll make it farther away from my neighbors, and we'd like to put a pool in the next 18 months. So even though we could put the chicken coop now slightly in the yard, a little more towards the property where I would not require the variance, would also hinder our plans to, put our pool where we want to put it.
Right. Well, you are aware in this zone, you're required to be at least the height of the building off of any easement, any
No,
property line? No?
it's housing livestock, it needs to be 75 feet off the lot line.
The R2 and the R3 zones have a special clause that says any structure housing livestock or farm animals needs to have a 75-foot setback.
Right.
That's why we're here today.
No, I understand that, but I'm looking at the conservation easement. Okay, if you go to the conservation easement, which is 50 feet, correct?
Yep,
Okay, the actual conservation setback is 80 foot, isn't it? In the zone?
no,
Then what's the setback line that I'm looking at 80 feet?
That's for the principal structure. So accessory structures are normally not bound by that setback at all.
Okay.
They have their own rule. In this case, it's 75 feet
Okay, so it would be 75 feet, but from where?
from the property
the
line.
property line.
Okay, the outside property line.
No, that's wrong.
That's,
Just remember, there's a section in the ordinance that says you measure setbacks from the conservation line, and that's where you have to measure it from.
that's what I was going by.
Right. So you don't measure it from the property, because there's a section in the ordinance that says if you have where we have conservation easements, you measure the setbacks from the
From the
conservation
conservation
line.
easement.
Now, that takes up 50 feet of this man's property.
That's correct.
And it's an irregular shaped lot, and it takes up quite a bit. Now, if you look at the aerials, it looks like the conservation easement is preserved and wooded,
Right.
based upon the aerial. The area open would be the area from the conservation easement over to the house. But-
Okay, but would you put the height of the structure setback off the easement
Well,
line?
that's for accessory structures, but you would have to, if it's farm animals, you're gonna have to institute the farm animal section.
Okay,
But you measure your setbacks from the conservation easement line.
okay. So that puts it up at the house.
Yeah, pretty much. Correct. He basically has no backyard
Right,
for doing anything, for this type of structure.
right. Now, if he put in a lawnmower shed, just a storage building,
Well, then he would be the height of then he would be, if he puts in a lawnmower shed, he's the height of the structure.
right, off of the easement line.
Right, that's correct.
Okay,
It's like 8 feet.
Right,
Right. He said his structure, as he said, right at the corner of where the two lines intersect,
right.
which basically, if you look at the aerial, it's probably right in the corner by the woods. It's hard. The conservation easement, if you look at the aerial, is all wooded, as far as I can see.
Right.
Doesn't show on the survey. I'm looking at a section of the aerial that we took off. And
Right.
if the board wants, you want me to pass it around?
If you don't mind, please,
Sure.
do you want to mark that as exhibit?
Sure.
And all the property also behind me is also wooded, even behind the easement is wooded as well.
B7?
Mr. Johnson, then, is, looking at Lot 14 and Lot 67, then, is that residential?
Lot 4, I get,
14.
oh, so 67 is St. Veronica's Church. So that's a commercial, it's shaped like an L. So that part of their property is wooded. 14 is the top lot, is that
Yeah.
correct? So that's zoned residential, that's, I think, a 6-acre or 5-acre lot. So that section of the property also is wooded and undeveloped. However, closer to Aldrich Road is the property, is the actual home of whoever owns that property.
Oh, on 14?
On lot 14, right?
What about 11.08?
So 1108, that's a neighbor, that's residential, that's our direct neighbor, and there's a new house being built on 1110.
Put- go back here.
And how far are those houses away from your property line?
So
Not worried about the easement.
if you look at the conservation easement where it's like dashed, that back fence, for example, from where I want to put the structure, so like the top is 120 feet, going down is about 100 feet, give or take. So, and then, my neighbors would be directly next to me. So where the solid lines are now, the solid lines, there's existing fence that we have installed last
But I
year.
don't think we can.
Okay.
This is a problem. This is a conservation easement.
What kind of fence is it?
It's a privacy fence.
Okay.
The back fence is chain link, is black chain link, but the fence next to my neighbors is a solid PVC privacy
Okay,
fence.
that's fine.
It's 6 feet high.
Okay. Let me get some other questions. How many chickens are you anticipating on having at any one time?
About a dozen, egg laying, no roosters, just for eggs, we want to get them.
No roosters?
No roosters,
Okay. Just for your own consumption?
correct. The eggs, not the chickens.
Well, what are you going to do with the chicken poop?
So, when we've had before, and not in New Jersey, but when we've had chickens before, we just kind of get a little bin. The bottom of the coop itself, we usually put like sand or gravel, and then use kind of a kitty litter scoop just to pick it up, throw it in a can, just dispose of it, in the trash like you'd regular garbage and take it out. The structure that I want to put there actually is fenced on the side, so that way we could put the food in at nighttime. I know there's obviously, other animals, foxes and stuff like that. We don't want the possums or raccoons come and eat the food at nighttime, because it kind of creates a nuisance. So just trying to keep it clean, basically.
Now, are the chickens going to be allowed outside the area?
No, the structure we're proposing has a gated run, which is gated from the, not gated, it's mesh on the bottom as well along the sides, just to prevent from other animals, predators digging underneath and getting in. So they'll be in that structure. They're not going to be allowed to go around the yard. We have 2 dogs,
Okay.
so we don't want them going around eating the chicken poop and getting sick and stuff like that.
So basically, the size of that structure is going to be their containment, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Mallon,
Yes.
you want to go through your letter?
Well, I can summarize what they have. Basically, he's looking for, as we said, setbacks. I'll be honest with you, we missed the farm-type piece in our letter, which would put it at the 75. We had it listed as the height of the shed from the conservation easement. You talked about the height of the, will be 9'4", correct, to the top? Because you're lifting it up, the coop, up 14 inches off the ground, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You said the number of chickens would max would be 12. You talked about the waste disposal. Have you, anything dealing with noise and smell? Is there anything that is done chicken excrement is very high ammonia smell. If you've had chickens before.
Oh, yeah,
So you know what that is, how often do you clean it?
Daily.
Daily? It's cleaned daily? It sounds like it's almost similar to pigeon coops. Pigeons are the
Never
same,
had pigeons
well,
before.
same idea. You clean it, and you spend, of course, pigeons you can spend a lot of money on when you raise them. The production of eggs, you expect to sell them, or you just going, that's just for?
No, it's just for personal consumption.
For personal and whatever you give away. How do you, do you bring roosters onto the property? How do you?
No, we don't plan on having any roosters in the property.
No, nothing? And then, your survey really doesn't relate what's out on the property.
Right.
According to this, it shows a fence back on the property line. I question whether, I mean, you couldn't see it through the wood, the photo I gave you. Is there a fence back along the property line? And would that be your neighbors through the woods?
We have, Lot 14 does have a fence surrounding their property.
Okay.
A chain link fence. It's maybe 4 feet high. It's not very long, it's not very high. But we have a 6-foot fence along the back of our property line bordering the easement.
You have it all,
On the easement line.
On the easement.
on the easement line? Okay. Because it doesn't show in your survey, that's why I ask, so. Okay, I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Beam,
I have nothing.
Mr. Howard?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I want to direct your attention to A6, I believe, A7. You presented to the board what appears to be an architectural diagram of a chicken coop. It says Quaker 7x16 combination coop, correct? Is this the model that you intend to install should the board look favorably on your
Yes.
application? This very
This
example?
exact model, yes.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Now, what are you, okay, Mr. Mallon, you brought up you're raising it 14 inches. How are you raising it 14 inches?
We're cinder block.
Cinder block?
And then we're going to put another, just a slab on top.
Okay, so you're going to have actually a structure underneath this?
Oh, I wouldn't call it a structure. We're just going to put the blocks so that they're, high enough.
Yeah, but are you going to have a footing under those block, or
No.
just, okay.
It's under 200 square feet.
How are you going to keep them from settling?
What do you mean, the blocks?
Yeah,
Well, I mean, when they bring the thing in, they're bringing it in like a backhoe, so they have a base on it already, so they're going to kind of just plop it on. But if we need to install some kind of, something on the bottom, like a foundation, I mean, that's not a big problem.
well, it is a problem for us.
Well, technically, it's under 200 square feet, so we cannot require him to put it on a foundation.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just asking if he plans on doing that. You know,
No, my understanding was you were just going to put some concrete block on the ground
Right,
and then place the coop on the block.
right. But if you're saying that I shouldn't do it that way, then I don't.
I'm not saying that.
Oh.
No, I'm
He's just
not
asking
either.
what you're doing. He's not opining one way or the other whether it's okay.
No, I'm
I
just
wouldn't
trying
commit
to find out
I wouldn't
because,
commit to putting it on a foundation unless
Oh,
you're actually
no, yeah.
required to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't brought to my attention I needed one, so I never,
yeah, if you're going to do that, that affects the application because now it becomes a permanent structure, not a temporary structure.
Yeah, it's definitely considered a temporary structure.
Right now, but if he puts a foundation
Correct.
under it, it's not.
I agree, and I would not make that recommendation.
I'm not. I just want to find out what the plan is for placing this. But you will have settlement with concrete block under there, especially 14 inches. You're looking at 3 layers of block.
I would say minimal settlement. To me, this is going to be less likely to settle than an actual shed because what's going in it are chickens as opposed to like equipment. So.
No, I understand, but you got 3 blocks. Even a waylight block is very heavy. You got
Agree,
3
but that's a construction issue. That's really not,
No,
that's
I
kind of outside of
understand.
our area.
I understand, but, just note that you can't put a foundation there.
understood.
Well, he
Good if he wants.
can,
Yep.
he could, but he has to go through the building permit process.
building permits, but it also affects this board granting a variance for that.
That's true, we approve it as a temporary structure.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying, you know, if he does that, he's gonna have to come back to the board for a permanent structure.
Yes.
Okay, any questions from the board?
Yeah, just.
I have a question. Is this chicken coop insulated for noise?
Oh, it has insulation in it. Not, I wouldn't say it's specific for noise, but there is insulation. That's also why we're trying to keep the number of birds to a minimum. We're not trying to have a, giant farm here. Obviously, we have neighbors. That's also why we're not going to have, roosters on the property, trying to just be respectful of our neighbors on both sides, my left and my right.
Does the chicken coop require heat in the
No.
winter? They could make it on their own, no matter how cold it is?
Yeah, they're fairly hardy chickens. They do fine without any additional heat or heat lamps or anything like that. So there'll be no electricity going into the coop. I don't have to run any wires or anything like that.
Okay, that's all I have.
Mr. Chairman, one more.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson, you propose to put any utilities in this, electric or? No. No? Okay.
Mr. Roscoe, Mr. Posh?
So where's it going?
Well, that's the next one. Let's get through the questions and then we'll go from there. Mr. St. Clemente.
Where are you plan on putting the pool?
So the pool, if you bring the survey up, whenever we apply for the permit, is going to go somewhere, obviously towards the middle of the yard. We're still kind of in the middle of planning that, but preferably along the top of the yard, I guess you could say. Depending on the shape, I mean, we're probably gonna do like a kidney shape. So I've actually been talking about it with my wife, so I'm not exactly sure. The location is either gonna be the top of the yard or along the side, the same direction that I have the coop proposed to go in. But we were considering more along that side of the yard, only because there's, the way the sun comes in, there's more daylight stays on that spot. So we've been, kind of in between that side or that side, but it's gonna run in either one of these two directions.
Jack or Jennifer, can they have a pool and the chicken coop?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
What's the setbacks on the pool?
10 feet.
10 feet, yeah, okay.
Okay.
From the easement line?
Yep. I mean, that's, right?
To the concrete.
Right. So he's more than enough room back there to put a pool.
Good.
Yeah, the only thing I have is maybe for Matt could answer. You would only go out there to look at it if there was a complaint about the odor, right?
No, once this is proposed, they have to get permits after this.
Okay.
We'll go out and inspect that it's in the right location after the fact. Then, in the future, any complaints, it would
Okay,
pretty much be our
okay.
only reason.
That's all I have.
Mr. Moretti?
Oh.
Mr. Amata?
But I should mention also that when I spoke to the company that builds these, the actual housing piece with the chickens in it is already raised 14 inches. So they said that I may not need to put the concrete blocks, but is that a requirement that I would have to put them? Or does it not matter?
No.
No,
Hey,
okay.
I would rather see you not put
Okay,
that.
so that's fine, because they said it's already raised.
Yeah.
There's a space underneath, so I just wanted to make sure.
I see the space already there.
Okay, because in that case,
And then they have a ramp that comes down to the ground level.
correct.
Now, Mr. Mallon, should we set this off at the easement line, at least by the height of the structure? You wouldn't?
I really don't think it's critical.
Okay.
You have to consider what's around them also. And
Right.
you've got basically a big, large lot on one side and open space on the other.
Right.
He really doesn't. In fact, I think the township owns one of the neighboring pieces.
Yes, they do.
Yes, right.
No, I think that's the other case.
67 is St. Veronica's.
That's St. Veronica's, and then the top 14 is something else. I think it's our next case on the agenda
Right.
that the township has.
Right, it is.
My whole thing is it's a temporary structure. So if issues do come up in the future, it could be forklift up and moved. You know, I do that now for two other farms. I move their chicken coops around depending on the time of the year. They're the same type coops. So, at this point, I think I'm going to open it to public, see if there's anyone from the public wish to come forward and make a comment or ask questions. Do I have a motion?
Motion to open public.
Motion by Mr. Merton,
I'll second it.
seconded by Mr. Armato. Is there anyone in the audience that wish to come forward and make a statement, a comment, or a question? Come forward, please. Mr. Johnson, I'm going to ask you to have a seat in the chair there.
You can sit over here, Mr. Johnson, at this table. That's fine.
Sir, raise your right hand, please. All witnesses who will testify have to be sworn. Swear the testimony you give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Will you have your full name and your address, please?
My name is Herbert Bernstein, 22 Chestnut Hill Road.
Yes, sir.
I'm here with, representing my family and my neighbors on both sides, the Plunkett's and the Richards. We represent the three houses directly behind Mr. Johnson's property.
You're lot 14?
I'm 5401,
5401 Santa Veronica? That would be block
I
50.
don't remember the exact lot, but we represent the three properties.
Sir, right, just, as the plan is
Yes.
saying, you're not an attorney.
Okay,
So just speak in general terms if you want, and your concerns. and
okay.
questions.
My general concern is,
Just one sec, he's lot 54, block 5401, lot 40.
40,
So
that's
he's
it.
not directly adjacent to this property.
Where is lot 40?
Doesn't show on there? I believe he's behind that, I believe he's behind lot 14, but I couldn't, I don't know if Matt can.
when I look out my backyard, he's directly in front of me. But there's a,
You're not immediately
there's a,
adjacent.
excuse me?
You're not immediately adjacent. The lots that are immediately adjacent are lot 67, lot 14, and lot 11.08. So lot 40 is not immediately adjacent.
Okay. Then I'm slightly behind it, but I'm within that 200 feet.
Okay.
Okay,
I moved here in 1969. I'm here 50 years. When I bought the property, it was a wonderful property, residential area, and the trees behind me were absolutely beautiful. And I've raised my children. I've really had a wonderful time here for the 50 years. I never expected that to be at a place like this, being concerned with the chicken coop. This is residential. This isn't agricultural. I'm not an expert in chicken. I'm not an expert in chicken poop or anything like that. But everything that I've read about it is detrimental to myself and my neighbors. Some of the things that I read, and I saw it repeatedly in different articles, where the complaints basically were noise, smell, waste, exposure to salmonella, increase in mice, rat and mice population. Now, from what Mr. Johnson says, it appears that he's doing everything in his power to limit those particular problems. But I never expected to have a chicken coop behind my house. It's agricultural. If I wanted to move into an agricultural neighborhood, I would have. I moved into a residential neighborhood. I look on a map. I think it's R3 you refer to it, or something like that. And this is not something that I really expected.
Just for the board's consideration, the township does have a right to farm ordinance, and every lot in the township has farming as a principal permitted use. So
Yes.
even though it's a residential zone as an R3, not an agricultural real estate, it is a principal permitted use on every lot, Route 9, Route 33, wherever you are.
I didn't know that.
you can have a horse there,
You could have pigs there,
absolutely.
Really?
yes. Not that I'm advocating for that, but I'm just letting you know.
I'll get anything.
Yeah. No, it's just a shame because when this development started going up, like I said, I was outside one day and I saw trees falling, and then I heard the noise, and for 2 years, I basically watched the entire development being built, and it's a beautiful development. And Mr. Johnson has a beautiful house. In fact, I think I met you once,
May have.
and we started talking and everything, and
I
said,
just want to, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to make abundantly clear, he's not here asking for permission to have chickens. He's here asking permission for the location of the coop. So I just want that to be clear,
Very
because it's a 75-foot setback requirement, which I understand why he's here, because that would put it basically in the middle of his backyard, so I understand why you don't want to put it there. But he's not here asking us to give him permission to allow him to have chickens. He's allowed to have chickens. So I don't mean to cut you off, but I do want to focus what we're here to discuss. So it's the location of the coop that we're here to discuss. We're not here to discuss whether he's allowed to have them or not.
Exactly.
Okay. So the location of the coop, which is within 200 feet of my property,
So it would be 25 feet. He's 25 feet too close to your property, which is not immediately behind him.
so if we killed this, he'd move it 25 feet back.
And then he could put the coop, and he wouldn't even have to be here.
So basically what I'm doing is wasting my time.
I'm not saying that. I don't mean to disrespect what you're, I'm not trying to disrespect.
No, I understand completely.
I just want to make sure that we're clear as to why he's here. He's here because of the location, not because the chickens. That's why he's
So
here.
it's basically a chicken coop is okay.
Correct.
Lots of luck. I wish you luck. I'll see you over the fence.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to come forward, ask questions, or make a statement? Please come forward. Anyone else? Seeing none, can I have a motion to close public?
Motion to close.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Amata. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Any further comment from professionals?
No, sir.
I really do. Jennifer brought up a good point. He is not here for the chickens. He's here for the placement of the coop. That's it. It's a temporary structure. It's not a permanent structure. Mr. Johnson, I hope you do realize if you do decide to put a permanent structure, you would have to come back to the board.
I understand.
Mr. Chairman,
In the easement.
another
Yes,
thing, based upon his testimony, it's what he presented, he's allowed. Like, he couldn't come in and do another coop unless he comes back,
correct.
just so you
And he
understand.
did commit to no roosters, which I think is a big issue with respect to noise.
That was my number one.
Agreed.
Since he committed first, I never had to bring up the
Agreed.
question,
Agreed.
you know. Because he's not fertilizing eggs, so he's not going to have chicks. Not only that, you're not going to have the 5 o'clock in the morning wake-up calls. So that's the big deal. I have them all around me, so we don't sleep with the windows open.
Yeah, I hear that.
Okay. Any further questions from the board? What's the pleasure of the board?
Fellow board members, I would like to make a motion to approve case number BA 1816. I do have friends that have chicken coops, and this looks like the Taj Mahal compared to what they have. But I too do, as a courtesy to your neighbor, just to upkeep it, and I have no issues with where it's placed.
Yeah, again, the coop itself, I mean, the bottom's epoxied. I mean, we're making it so it can be really clean, right? Try to be, again, respectful to my neighbors, right? Try to keep it straight and forward, so.
Okay.
I have a motion by Mr. Merton. Do I have
I'll
a
second that motion.
Second by Mr. O'Donnell.
I'd like to add, into the minutes that you said there'll never be a rooster. I want to
Correct.
hold you to it. The structure will be listed as a temporary structure, so you understand that. And I don't know if we could put a limit on the chickens. You said 10. I wouldn't want
12.
to see you get 20. 12?
12.
Okay, so a limit of 12, and not to get 15 or 20, because it might get out of hand, so you understand that. And the coop can't be enlarged. And my motion is to, along with those conditions, is to approve it.
Okay. Got a motion by Mr. Merton, seconded by Mr. O'Donnell. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Mr. Amata.
Yes.
Mr. Mertens.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Posh.
Yes.
Mr. San Clemente.
I'm going to say no, because it's still, to me, too close. If it's 60, 70 feet, I can see yes, but there's only a 50-foot with the conservation, so I'll say no.
Mr. Orozco.
Yes.
Chairman Nansen.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Good luck.
Thank you. Just so I know, do I come back and, pay for the variance of the township next week? Is that how I?
You can come call me
Okay.
tomorrow.
Just
Thank you.
call,
Thank you, Eileen.
call Lee.
Good luck.
I gotta get it in the chair. This one's broke. I can't see it.
Yeah, but that's what that's why I had to come to order. Problem with conservation, there's nothing in the property at all. 50 feet from the property, you want to take conservation.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't want to say anything because.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I saved them all. No, there's a telephone number on there.
Thank you.
Excuse me, it's on the other sheet.
Okay.
Come back, Eileen.
From the property line,
The number's on another sheet.
conservation is 50 feet.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next case on the agenda, case number BA 0802A, Francisco Tango. Bulk variance for pool and equipment. Application of Francisco Tango as applicant and Francisco and Joanne Tango as owner, seeking pool and equipment setback variance approval for a swimming pool and retaining wall within the rear and side yard area on premises known as Block 1.19, Lot 18.52 Deborah Lane. Expiration date, January 24th, 2018. Mr. Tingle.
I do.
Welcome.
Good evening, my name is Francesco Tango, 52 Deborah Lane. Here tonight to get the variances that you described. I had put a pool in several years ago. I had actually come to this board to get approval prior to putting the pool in, because I do go back against township property, and I do have an odd-shaped lot, and in order to take advantage of as much of the yard as possible, still have some area to congregate with family and friends, we had come at that point in time asking for that variance, and it was granted approval. So with that, I'm not a pool guy, I'm not a concrete guy. Pool company came in, said, where are we putting this, where are we putting that? I explained everything, walked away, and then when they came to give me the final permits, the final sign-off, they said, hey, you've exceeded this, you've exceeded that. I was told I had to come back and probably get those approvals again to make sure that we had the proper approvals documented where the pool was built. So got the as-built several years ago, started and stopped this process of having to come back in front of this board several times. No specific reason, just didn't prioritize it on my schedule, but ultimately worked with the group here, got the as-built, got that step done, got the application back in front, got all the necessary information back in front of this board so I can come back this evening and ideally get the approval to close this down once and for all and actually end this, I guess you can say.
Okay, Mr. Mallon.
Yes. Well, basically, he got approval for basically a side yard setback, granted a variance in '02.
No.
Excuse me, '08, I'm
08.
sorry, '08. And he was, it was the property towards the open space where we grant the variance. When he constructed, I guess his concrete guy got really carried away.
Yeah.
And he almost concreted all the way to his, I guess, westerly property line.
That would be.
There's no dimension, but it's about 2 feet, maybe,
About-
foot and a half.
Yeah.
I don't know where the water flows. And then you relocated the filter and the heater from as you're looking at the house, the left side of the house to the right side of the house to the left side. You were in violation then because you were about 7 foot off of the property line, and you required 10.
Correct.
So those are the things. So right now, he's in for a side setback for the filter and the water heater, 7 feet with 10s required. And basically for the patio, because we connect everything to the sidewalk along it, he needs basically 2 foot on the side where he needs 10. And basically, according to this, He goes right to the back property line, 0 feet, with the patio on the rear. Those are his reasons. Where does the water flow, Mr. Tango?
It actually,
Because there's no elevations on this other than the pool elevation.
yeah, so it does, I do have some rock along the, and I do have a picture of it here, I can show the
Want to
board.
mark it into exhibit, please? Also, I was on the board whenever you were here before, and it was back, Jack, at the time where we were having all of the pool cases coming in.
Yes.
And I remember thanking Mr. Tango for coming before he built his pool. Oh, boy, and here
Just so
we
the board
are.
knows, this is a very common occurrence with pool companies.
I know.
They get installed, they offer, I don't know, if the concrete guys just offer to do a little bit more while you're there, whatever. We catch this a half a dozen times a year. The difference is now we catch it and make them fix it right away. This one dragged on for a little bit, so that's why it's so much time. But this happens half a dozen times a year on new construction.
I know.
Because it's just what the
Matt,
pool companies do.
I don't remember, we had a lot of these problems, and then we instituted the form that was supposed to be
Correct.
signed, so the property owner knew, but if that's '08, he might have been before the form.
No, actually, he was part of the reason for the farm. If you remember, we had a pool case right before his case come to the board, and we made him tear
Oh,
out.
the saw cut, yeah, that
Yes,
was,
we made
I
him
remember,
saw
that was
cut
the
it.
school teacher.
Right, and so Mr. Tango got thanked a lot from the board for coming first before he
Yes,
built these
yes,
pools.
yes.
But,
Good work.
I tried.
But, so the water flows where, Mr. Dan? Does it go towards your neighbor, does it go to the back?
It goes, yeah, I'm not gonna say it doesn't go to the neighbor, it is a little bit elevated that way towards, it goes more towards the back than anything else.
Goes towards where the well is,
Yeah.
in
there's
that
a-
direction?
Yes, in that direction, towards that part of the property line. And like I said, there is rock there, and where the fence is, and I do have some mulch back there, but primarily that's where the water goes.
I mean, the purpose of the ordinance was to keep pool water from flowing off onto the neighbor's property, because it killed their vegetation. Sometimes they had gardens there, and it killed it. That was the purpose of it. But you say between the fence, that fence along your neighbor, and the concrete, you have rock? I mean, I don't have the pictures. I take it you brought pictures to show?
Yeah, we'll bring it back. I just put some, I tried to fill in that space, some cinder block and some other stone, just for the wall to, if it did go down, it would filter down in that area.
I mean, normally, we like to channel the water, keep it away from the neighbors.
Just a quick question, really quick. I haven't gotten any from the township, I'm not aware of any. Has your neighbor ever had an issue with water on their property?
No,
No
don't have any
complaints to
problems
you?
with water congregating back there or building up,
They're not here by
pooling in
any
his
chance,
yard.
are they?
I'm sorry?
They're not here by any chance, are they?
No, they're not.
But they were noticed,
Well, see,
so.
Yes.
as far as the retaining wall, you got just concrete block running down that fence line, and then you got it filled with stone, looks like brick or other pavers that's under there.
It's just, yeah, it was just filler. I just tried to put some cinder block to take up space and fill it in with some
Yeah,
stone.
because
That's it.
if you look at the concrete, your elevation right by the pool filters is 97.4. If you look at right off of that on lot 17, it's 96.1. That's over a foot fall from your concrete finished elevation to the existing elevation on lot 17. It's not as bad towards the back, but it's coming more towards the front of the house. I know, but you're 96 there, but you're 96.1 here, so the water's
Right.
coming down this way.
But the concrete's flat, that's why I said that you.
Well, it's flat there, but it's draining towards the 97.4, towards
Yes.
the neighbor's property. Because if you go further, the top of the pool elevation is 97.66.
Right,
Okay, if you go from there, that water's running to the 94.7.
correct.
It's going to the 96.1. You know, and it's sheeting on there.
But there's nothing behind him, there's no neighbor behind him.
Yeah, but you got a neighbor to the, lot 17 is a neighbor,
Lot
correct?
17 is the only residential neighbor that I have.
That's where the water's going. The, no, it's going there. I mean, it's coming from the other side of the pool, even around the conservation easement, or the township property there. It's running back down to the 9695, down to the 9625, 9601. All of that water is looping right around, back down towards the street there. Now, question, Jack. If he goes in there and puts a trench drain, yeah, he might have to saw cut part of that concrete to get a trench drain in there to catch that water. Would that help?
That would help, sure. That would, I mean, we've done them up 1 foot wide, go down around a foot.
Yeah, but he needs to be further than that off of that fence. You know, because right there, you got an 8-inch block, you probably only have a foot there between the fence and the concrete.
I'm only going by what's on the scale, I don't have.
I'm looking at the picture.
Yeah.
But it loops right around the back, that back arch, all the way around down to lot 17 is coming back down 17.
Is that the back,
Yeah,
or
he's-
is that the,
That's it, right?
is this picture that you showed us, is this the back, or is it the side?
That's by the pool filters.
the white fence there?
Yes.
The back.
So this is the side. This is
That's the side, this side, yeah.
Yes, that's
It's 1.5 feet, I'm zoning vehicle submitted.
Yeah, but if you look at the picture, it's close.
It depends on,
Right? 100% agree.
depends on how wide you want to make it.
Well,
I mean, he's probably got a foot between the fence.
I know, but you're gonna have to dig, at least 2 to 3 feet to get a trench drain.
Well, you're probably going to have to go down at least probably 1.5 to 2 feet, yeah.
Yeah, and so you're not gonna have room to excavate that. Whose fence is that? Is that
Mine.
your fence?
my fence.
Now, is it right on your property line, or is it off of the property line?
I'm thinking it's right on the property line, as far as I know.
Yeah, so,
Probably just inside.
Yeah.
The survey shows it's like literally just inside
Right.
the property line.
yeah. But even if you look at the elevations, Jack,
Yep.
on there.
No, I see if you look at the neighbors, you're right.
Well, even looking at the township property where the metal fence is in the back, even looking at that loop around, if you follow those elevations, that's all draining to lot 17 and down 17, if you follow the elevations.
Yeah, I see it. Well, I don't know what happens beyond his property in the back on the township property. That could fall off also.
Well, it does, it comes right around that loop. If you look at the elevations, you got a 9745, you got a 9695, down to a 9625, and then in lot 17, you got a 961.
Yep, no, I see it, I just don't know
That's
what's...
where it's coming.
We don't know what the elevation does behind it, that's the only thing.
Yeah, look,
Well, it could fall off from 9625 and go back the other way. That
Yeah,
could be
but
the high point.
you're at 97. You got elevations in the middle of the township property.
Yeah, I see it.
You know, it's all coming down to that hole right there.
I testified the neighbor doesn't have any problem with water. And it looks like with the block and things he's put in, he is intercepting the water, but I don't know how well it works,
Right.
especially in a rain.
Yeah, Mr. Mountain, I recall when I was here last time, you had actually testified to the soil content in that part of town.
Well,
And,
yeah, you're in Ramtown, believe me.
Yeah, I mean, even with the...
They have Ocean County soils there. It's very sandy. No, I know that,
I
because we
recall you
have,
making that point
we
last
have
time.
basins that the water enters one end, never reaches the outlet.
We have a basin on the
I'm
end of the
well
lot
aware
there.
of that.
What is your advice, Mr. Mallon?
Well, only because of the nature of the soils and his neighbor doesn't have anything. I mean, I hate to see him have to saw cut that. I would rather have him try to take out the block and put in a foot and a half of stone, and then backfill. Put it in fabric so it doesn't silt out, and do it that way. If he has to move the fence, he has to move the fence.
Okay.
But it looks to me like he could get at least a foot of stone in there.
Okay.
Because you look at the block's right up against the fence,
Right.
and he's got a brick in there and even more room.
Right, and I didn't want to just fill it in with stones. I don't want to have the weight up against the bottom of the fence either, which is why I tried to use the cinder block to try and capture some of that,
Probably 4 inches
you know,
long.
so it wouldn't be so much weight there. Other than that, I'd have to go in, and that's not an issue, but put some kind of a support
by
in front of the
16 by
fence so that there wouldn't be any stone weight against that
8 by
PVC
16.
fencing.
But I'd rather have the stone leaning on the fence, because it's not, it's
I
going
was
to
just
be a
concerned
dead
about
weight.
weight. I
It's
have
going
no
to be a
problem
dead
doing that.
weight, so.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can he put, like any PVC piping to make it go?
Well, he'd have to put a catch basin, but I don't think he would,
He
he
doesn't
has
meet
a
the
room.
criteria. You know, that we have criteria for stormwater management, that you have to have a certain amount
Doesn't-
of impervious, and he certainly does not meet that criteria. So right now, what we're just trying to mitigate is the fact that the patio is too close to the fence.
And water,
But I think that if he puts in, you know, the stone and the fabric, like Jack says, it's about 1.5 feet off that line, which is what you have on your zoning map too,
Yes.
or your zoning table. That should solve that problem. And quite honestly, the fact that we've heard that we've got no complaints from the neighbor in town hall for drainage problems, and no one's here complaining, tells me, and the Ocean County soils, Jack is right, it's totally sand. Water infiltrates the ground, it does not run off like it's clay or dirt or compacted. I think we could mitigate the problem if he just does the improvements that Jack had recommended, without having to have him saw cut this nice patio. I mean, I've been there, I had the same issue where the guy was like, oh, I have extra concrete on the truck, can you just fill it in? And I was like, yeah, sure, because, you know, it would make the backyard look nicer, so I get it 100%. And it is a nice, clean patio, so I do think we have the ability to mitigate this without major
Yeah.
disruption to the backyard.
Right, Mr. Chair, if he was in North Howell, I wouldn't have that same suggestion, because we know the soils are much different. But down in Ramtown, the water just disappears right into the ground.
okay.
And we've had pretty heavy rain events of late, so if this was causing a problem, it would be readily apparent to the township at this point.
Also, up by the filters, you know, that's an area he could also expand his trench drain too, to catch more water too, so, you know, there's plenty, I think he's,
And this pool is not brand new, it's been there 10 years, correct?
A little bit less than that, but close to
If there was an
it.
issue,
right,
we would know about it by now.
correct.
Right.
Yeah.
He's just very good at his job.
Okay,
He answers the
any
complaints.
questions from the board? Any questions? Professionals, y'all have any further
No,
comments?
as long as you agree to the improvements that Jack has recommended,
That's
I
fine.
have no issue with it.
Okay,
I would agree to that.
okay. Can I have a motion to open to public?
Motion to open to public?
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Amata. All in favor? All opposed? Seeing none. If there anyone in the public wish to come forward, ask questions, or make a statement or comment, please come forward. Seeing none, can I have a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell to
Second.
close. Seconded by Mr. Amata. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any further comments from the professionals? Professionals, any further comments?
Especially
Any
since,
comments or questions from the board? What's the pleasure of the board?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this application with the one stipulation of Mr. Mallon's recommendation that you take care of.
Okay,
Okay?
got a motion by Mr. O'Donnell,
Thank you. Second.
seconded by Mr. Roscoe. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Mr. Amata,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Posh, Mr. San Clemente,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Chairman Nansen.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And again, I'd like to thank you again for coming forward and taking care of it. I know I thanked you before, but,
Appreciate the
things
patience
happen.
of the board.
Well, I think it's the patience of that guy right over there, Mr. Howard. So, okay, at this moment, the board's going to take a 10-minute recess.
The board will now recess. The zoning board will now reconvene.
Mr. Orozco.
next two,
Here's Mr. Orozco.
California and New York.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, our next case on the agenda, case number BA 18-18, new singular wireless PCS Cellco Partnership. Conditional use variance, bulk variance, preliminary and final major site plan. Application of new singular wireless PCS and Cellco Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless, is applicant, and TNT Realty LLC is owner seeking conditional use variance, bulk variance, preliminary and final major site plan approval to construct a new 165-foot high monopole telecommunications tower, remove the Verizon equipment antenna from existing lattice tower and relocate to proposed monopole, install new antenna and related accessory equipment for AT&T on the proposed monopole and new equipment compound to service the AT&T antenna, which will include a 12-by-16 equipment barn, equipment cabinet, and a 30 kW diesel generator. Also supporting the 12-by-24 concrete pad and enclosed by a 6-foot high chain link fence on premises known as Block 42, Lot 22, easterly side of Oakland Road, approximately 260 feet south of County Road 547. Expiration date, December 26, 2018. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Judy Fairweather on behalf of your applicants this evening. So what you have there is a JCP&L tower. And the tower, you'll hear all the testimony from my experts, from my engineer and a representative from JCP&L, can't handle the AT&T antennas. Safety reasons, structural, a list of reasons. So what we're proposing is taking down the JCP&L tower and putting up a new JCP&L tower that will still be the transmission tower, but it's just the newer style, where the older style are lattice towers, the new style transmission towers have more of a monopole shape. So even though it looks kind of like a monopole, it's sleeker, it's still a transmission tower. So we're putting up a higher transmission tower so we can move Verizon over and put AT&T on it. So we're not adding a tower to the town. We're keeping it the same number. We're just making it work from what's there.
Now, will this also, well, go ahead.
With my witnesses, sure.
Yeah, I'll let your witness
Come in? All right.
testify.
So I'm going to start. I know you've heard lots and lots of these applications. I know you're more than you've wanted to ever hear. So I'm going to go a little at a faster pace. If I go
Thank
too
you.
fast, just tell me to slow down.
Okay.
Okay. Dan, let's go.
You want to bring up, let's go ahead and swear all of your witnesses. Yes, please.
Okay, come on up, everyone. Dave, Paul, Melissa, just in case, call up here. Yeah.
Excuse me.
I do. Sir, starting with you, may we have your name?
David Collins, last name spelled Collins.
Melissa Cook. And that's
What was that?
Melissa Cook. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Colleen Connolly, Connolly.
Thank you.
Paul Ricky, RICCI.
Very good.
Daniel Panesso, PENESSO.
Very good. All sworn.
Yep,
Thank you.
Great. I'm going to start with my radio frequency engineer, Dan Panesso. Dan, give me your educational professional background.
Y'all can sit at the table.
Oh, okay.
There's
I
a
didn't know
mic
if
right
they
in the
could
middle
hear
of the
us.
table.
Those things are speakers.
Oh, so
Microphones.
much better, thank you.
Yes, and you can pull them closer just to make sure we
Okay.
catch it. Thank you.
All right, Dan, go, move it.
Good evening. I have a Bachelor of Science in Electronic Engineering. I have been employed as a radio frequency engineer for over 20 years. I have been tasked with design and implementation for this site that's before the board.
And you've been in front of this board before as a
and
radio frequeny engineer.
I have, yes.
So I'm offering Dan as my expert in the field of radio frequency engineering.
We accept your credentials.
Not like this. Dan, you have prepared a propagation map for us, and I do not believe it is on our list of, it is not. So this would be A20, let's mark it, can you tell me what it is?
Excuse me, would you like this?
A21.
Oh, thanks. Sure.
Oh, great.
This is,
820.
You have to use it very close up.
all right, thank you.
Okay,
So,
Dan, tell me who did it
think
and
it's
what it is,
A20.
and mark it
A21.
I'll mark it.
821.
Okay.
Okay, you talk, I'll mark.
He's coming to market for you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Never had that before.
So this Exhibit A21, which is dated March 10th, 2018, is the larger D-size version to what you have in this application. And,
Excuse me,
we can't see it over here.
okay, I'll turn it to you, but
Yes,
Just-
please.
have it, so you could just make sure
they had, all right.
Yep.
Better?
yes, A14 is actually your coverage maps.
It is
Correct.
A14.
Correct. So the first map that I'd
We-
like to go over is the,
We do
okay,
have it.
We don't have it.
So it's A14, it's not A21?
Right, it's A14.
We'll remove that mark.
It's called coverage maps.
It's 814.
so it should be labeled A14.
They already had it marked. Eileen, do you have a copy of that? A14, yeah.
Oh, I was the culprit. I'm looking at him. I was the culprit.
We're ready.
Okay, Dan.
We got it.
Okay, so what we're looking at is the existing on-air coverage within AT&T's network. In approximate center of the map, the purplish star is the proposed location of AT&T's site before the board tonight. The colors on the map, the purplish, blue, and the green represent the coverage that is being provided by the existing on-air sites. The green represents reliable in-vehicle coverage, and the purplish blue reliable in-building coverage. The area in white surrounding the proposed location is the area of unreliable coverage that we're trying to fulfill with the construction of the site. Once the site, if the site were built and integrated, would fulfill most of that proportion of white area that's not reliable within AT&T's network.
And Dan, what's it going to look like if the board approved the application?
So if, I'll flip to the next.
I've got a question real quick
Sure.
before you flip that.
Sure.
There's an existing antenna there now, correct?
Yes, it's Verizon on the tower that we're proposing to replace.
Okay, it's Verizon, not AT&T.
It's
Now,
Verizon.
this coverage that you're showing here, is this Verizon or AT&T
No,
coverage?
AT&T, because Verizon was in front of you, I think it was 2005 or so.
Right, 2008.
2008, and they already received all of their conditional use variance, all their variances. They already received it and showed you that they had a gap.
Right.
So we're just moving them over.
No, my
Yeah,
question
this
is
is just AT&T.
this is just AT&T,
Yes.
not Verizon.
Not Verizon.
Okay.
Verizon already did their proofs to you.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I know there's an existing antenna there, and then we see this white, then why are we here? That's why I just wanted to clarify that. Go
Okay,
ahead.
So Dan, if the application is approved, what would the coverage look like?
If the application were approved, the coverage with the site integrated into the network would look like this map, which is map number 2, and it's titled AT&T Proposed Composite Coverage.
And just for the record, Dan, AT&T is licensed by the FCC,
That's correct.
and pursuant to its license, it has to provide reliable coverage to its customers.
That's correct.
And AT&T was just awarded something called FirstNet. Can you just explain to the board quickly what FirstNet is that this site will have and all the sites now being built in New Jersey?
Correct, yes. What Judy's referring to is FirstNet is for first responders, if there is ever an emergency situation, that a block of spectrum in the 700 megahertz band would be allocated to first responders only. It wouldn't be going to the private sector. So that anybody within the township or coming from another location to the township or in this area that has to respond to an emergency situation will have that block of spectrum allocated to them so that they have access, like a private network basically for the first responders to use in an emergency situation.
And Dan, one of the problems in the very awful thing from September 11th was that the police in New York City couldn't talk to the fire department in New York City, and none of them could talk to New Jersey because everybody had their own systems, correct?
Correct. And also, if you have an emergency situation, the public burdens the system, and it can only handle so much traffic. So this would dedicate the use for the first responders. So there wouldn't be basically saying competition. Like if I'm initiating a call, and someone else is initiating a call, they can't get through. They get like as if you would get a busy signal. Because when we have emergency situations, everybody gets on the phone at the same time. So this would be dedicated just for first responders, so they wouldn't have that issue.
And it's dedicated pursuant to the FCC, right? The FCC has been working very hard in coming up with a system that will be nationwide, not
That's
only
correct.
between New York and New Jersey. And the system was awarded to AT&T, and AT&T has implemented it. And as a matter of fact, with this recent hurricane down in the Gulf, everyone was able to get onto the AT&T system, correct, because of FirstNet?
That's correct, yes. And as Judy stated, all the neighboring sites that you see are being upgraded to have the LTE 700 megahertz band as well.
It's a big deal.
Yes, it's awarded by the FCC. Say that again?
It's not, in other words, if there's an emergency, it's there. If there's no emergency, it's still there.
It's exactly, but if there's no emergency, then that spectrum can be utilized for the public, you see? So if there's an emergency, then it gets dedicated to first responder only. So the public couldn't have access to it.
So if I
That
had
spectrum.
a local emergency here that you didn't know about,
It would still be it would still be active, but the system would be able to handle it. If there's a large catastrophic emergency, then it's dedicated. As far as the break-off point, it's more of like a hurricane situation or something like that. But if there's an emergency, whether, you have a fire or
if I was a first responder,
first responder, you could still utilize the network because the spectrum is still there, yes. Yes.
Where would the command post be on that? For example, if you're bringing in all these different functions, the police department, fire department, the county, the local police department, are you going to have a local command that can start to give out orders? You can't have people talking over each other.
I believe for them to use the system, Dan, that it's the device that they will be
Right.
using, and the device is only given to the first responders. And the first responders can make their phone calls back and forth to each other, whether it's the county to the town, New York City to New Jersey, whatever it is.
Right, it's not going to be like a radio system it's your regular device, your mobile phone, that they have access to that, so they can use it anywhere, in a hospital, because that's where a lot of cases are where they don't have communication. You have people coming in that have to go to the hospital, and the hospital has to have coverage so that you can use your mobile phone. It won't be a walkie-talkie type device. It's going over the wireless network that AT&T is providing.
I may have the wrong company, but wasn't this Nextel at one time?
No.
No.
We were Singular, and then
Yeah,
AT&T.
Nextel did have push-to-talk.
Yeah, but
They
that-
did
but
have that,
that's
but
not
that's
what
not
this
this.
They were the only ones over at 9/11 that were able to talk to each other.
At that, yeah, but this is a totally different,
But it's similar to that.
this is going over the wireless network, the same one that we would be using now as a public, for public use, whether you're, talking mobile to mobile, looking at the internet, any type of application that we provide, that AT&T provides, this band of spectrum, because the way that the network works is blocks of spectrum are allocated or licensed to the carriers, various blocks of spectrum. So if there isn't enough spectrum, like as I stated, because it's divided up so that calls can go through or data can be processed, this spectrum is allocated specifically for first responders so that it's not bogged down or utilized by the public use. That's what the special thing about this FirstNet application is.
And the public will still have use of their own.
Yes, yes, because we have enough spectrum to handle both. But this is being implemented nationwide for first responders use, so that every cell site that we build, as you can see, all the neighboring cell sites, all of them talk to one another. So that's why you see the overlapping coverage that we have. You have to have seamless coverage, not gaps, so that it can hand off from site to site. So that spectrum that is allocated to a carrier is utilized throughout the network and can communicate.
Okay. So Dan, in your professional opinion, we need this site in order to have the coverage to our customers in Howell?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
That'll fill a lot of gaps that I have on my AT&T phone, right?
Yep.
Around the reservoir.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay, no problem.
Mr. Mallon, any questions?
Sure. No, I have no questions.
Jennifer? Any other questions from the board?
Is this going to support 5G?
right now we're designing LTE 4G, and then 5G will be rolled out. I can't say when, but right now we're rolling out LTE.
How many channels will that handle?
No, this is not, this LTE is long-term evolution, it's not channels. And it's not time division like the old, like GSM. It's not, it's based on the spectrum. So the more users you get, the footprint of coverage shrinks. That's how it works. It's code division.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Dave, would you please give us your educational professional's background?
Yes. I have a Bachelor of Science in Industrial Technology from City College of New York, 20 years' experience working for Pinnacle Telecom Group. We're an independent telecommunications consulting firm. We specialize in the assessment of antenna sites concerning the FCC's maximum permissible exposure levels.
Accept your credentials.
Sorry, sir?
We accept your
Thank you,
credentials,
sir.
and you have testified before this board before.
A long, long time ago.
It's been,
Okay,
yeah.
Yes,
good enough.
yes, and thank you.
Okay.
We've all been here a long, long time.
Yeah.
Okay, Dave, so as Exhibit A16, we submitted the compliance assessment report that was done by Pinnacle.
Yes.
Can you please just explain to the board, we have two sets of antennas on here, do we comply with the FCC requirements for energy output?
In a single word, yes.
By how much?
By a factor of 37 times. We are 37 times below the combined effect of all the antennas proposed at the site. The maximum permitted, the maximum output of the antennas is still 37 times below what the FCC permits. So we are compliant by a very wide margin.
Thank you, I have no other questions for Dan.
Any questions from the professionals? Any questions from the board?
Next.
Standing.
I've got one question for you. No, not,
Not him, me.
are y'all designing this to handle more than just AT&T and Verizon? Or y'all?
No, it is just for AT&T and Verizon.
Okay, it's not going to be expandable as far ordinance, per
Well,
ordinance?
that's the next, that's our engineer
Okay.
next. And that has more to do, because it's not a monopole just built for carriers, this is a utility pole, so we have
Correct.
lots of requirements on that.
Okay.
And that's what Colleen will do.
Okay,
So Colleen, can you give us your educational, you haven't been here, right?
I have not been here.
Okay, give us your educational professional background.
New one. I have a bachelor's of engineering in civil engineering, and I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I have over 25 years of experience practicing civil engineering. Most of that has been in support of the telecommunications industry. I have been involved in the design of over 1,000 sites, similar to the one we're talking about here tonight.
And the plans were done under your supervision because you're one of the principals in the Shira Design Group?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
we
So-
accept your credentials.
All right, Colleen. So we will refer to let's see, the site plans are waiver, and coverage antenna, development application.
A19?
A19, preliminary and final site plans. So I would like you to please explain to the board what we are proposing. You can do it from that board there, you have board there, what are you most comfortable with?
Well,
That.
That
Perfect.
looks big there.
Yeah, just let us know what page you're going to be on the plan.
Okay, that's kind of a wide, I think if we look at the detailed, site plan, which is Z4, that's probably the best place to
What is
start.
it?
Z4? Yes, the one that's shown up there now. We're proposing to construct a new 165-foot transmission tower. On that tower, AT&T will be at the top of the tower with 16 antennas. Verizon's antennas, which right now are on the existing lattice-style transmission tower on the site, will be relocated to be 10 feet below where AT&T's antennas are.
So,
The-
okay, so you're actually going to raise Verizon's height from 138 to
That
158?
That is correct. No,
153.
153 to the center line. So right now on the existing lattice tower, the tower itself is 138 feet tall,
Correct.
and that is supporting the electrical lines. By current First Energy standards, where Verizon is right now with the bottom of their antenna directly at the top of the tower is not permissible.
Okay.
We have to have at least a 10-foot separation between that top static line and the bottom of the antenna above it.
Right.
So because of that, that is pushing us to put Verizon with a 153-foot rad center, and then we're putting AT&T's antennas above that at a 163.
Okay. Well, my question was, it's actually, you're raising Verizon's,
Well, the tower is
Ye-
raising.
Yes,
well,
and
yeah, but if you
Verizon's-
look at 138 feet, now it's at 153,
153,
so you're
yes.
actually raising their antennas.
That is correct.
Is
They will
that
be
going to
higher.
affect their coverage?
They're thrilled. Yes, it will
Yes,
make it
they're-
better.
That's why I'm asking
Yes,
this question,
it will
is to
make it
cover
better.
that.
Correct. The higher the better.
Okay.
Colleen, what about the Verizon equipment? It's staying exactly as it is?
Verizon's equipment will stay where it is in the location that it is.
And AT&T's proposed equipment?
AT&T is proposing equipment basically under the footprint of where the existing lattice tower is now. AT&T is proposing a 30-foot by 17-foot fenced compound, which will be enclosed with a 6-foot-high fence, chain link fence. Within that compound, they are proposing a 12-foot by 24-foot concrete pad. On the concrete pad will be a 30-kilowatt generator, which is for emergency standby power. And we will also have a metal equipment shed that's in a barn-like style, which is 12-foot by 16-foot. That's 192 square feet.
Some of the additional waivers that we are requesting with the application are, and if you can just explain to me after I get through reasons why we would seek these additional waivers, the location of the drainage improvements on the site, location of all flood hazard areas, 2,000-foot downstream analysis, location of other existing and proposed utility lines, existing conditions and demo plan. Well, let's stop there at the demo plan. Who will be taking down this transmission tower and putting up the new transmission tower?
First Energy does that work themselves.
Okay. And the tower will be removed with the same crew that's putting up the new tower. The new tower would go up, the transmission lines will go through so that there isn't a stoppage of electricity?
Yes, the new tower would be put in place, that would be supporting the lines that are there now. And once that's in place and that's set, then pretty much immediately thereafter, they would remove the existing tower, which would then allow AT&T to be able to construct their compound underneath of it.
Okay, great.
Okay, question, real quick, to clear this up, because I know our ordinances require that any monopole or tower be enclosed and fenced. Is there a reason this is not being enclosed and fenced? Can you please provide testimony to that?
By First Energy's regulations and how they need to have access to the pole itself for their transmission use, that's not something that they typically do. We can't have anything, even plantings or anything within 15 feet of the base of the tower itself.
And I think
And
your-
that's just for their access and
Okay.
maintenance.
And I think your ordinance was written for a monopole that is put in place for just telecommunication carriers.
It says any pole, monopole. This is a pole.
But it's in our telecommunications section, so
Yes.
it's really not envisioning transmission wires associated with the construction of the pole.
Okay.
And I do know that there are very specific requirements associated with transmission lines under the National Electric Safety Code, which prohibits a lot of these things that we would typically get associated with just cellular carriers.
Right.
That because this is transmission is a very different animal.
Right. I understand that, but there's no waivers or no variances
agree.
needed for this. I'm just trying to get it on the record so we can address it.
I just think, I agree with the testimony that because this is a transmission as well as cellular carrier, it's a little different animal than we typically see here.
But would we need to go the variance route or not for that, or just a waiver on the fence and landscaping?
Just a waiver?
Hold on. I have the landscaping down as a variance, but they have a planner here, he'll testify
Okay.
at the end, I'm sure. Yeah.
Okay.
And what is the rules with landscaping because it's JCP&L?
By the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities, they very limit what we can do as far as landscaping. So
Okay.
as I just said, within 15 feet of the tower itself, we can't have any plantings at all.
Right.
For 20 feet outside of, so from a point 20 foot to the outside of one of the overhead wires to 20 feet to the outside of the other, the maximum landscaping we can place is a maturity height of 3 feet.
Right.
And once you get beyond that 20-foot area, then we can go to a 10-foot high at maturity planting.
Right.
Also waivers for the drainage and grading plan, what would be the rationale for granting a waiver for those?
Our increased impervious area will be fairly minimal, particularly because of the size of this lot. The new impervious would just be the concrete pad, which is 12 feet by 24 feet. So no significant changes in grading on the site, and no significant increase in impervious.
And what about a lighting plan? What lighting proposed?
There will not be any lighting on the tower itself. It's not required by FAA. We will have one work light that's affixed to the shelter, and that will be on a timer so that it will be turned on when a technician is there. It will turn off automatically after
And it
they
will be
leave.
pointed down so that it doesn't interfere with any of the
yes.
possible neighbors? Okay, what about signage and striping plan?
The only signage that we have proposed is what's required by FCC, so no other commercial signage or anything along those
And those
lines.
are small signs on the fence, correct?
Yes,
And
and
on
they're
the equipment?
of warning type signs in nature.
Traffic signal and public entrance plan?
The site is unmanned, so we're only anticipating we'll have a technician there on a periodic basis, perhaps once a month. So there isn't an increase in traffic.
And a woodlands management plan?
We won't be cutting down any trees.
Maintenance and protection of traffic plan?
Again, we won't be impacting the roadway or increase in traffic.
How will you gain access to the site?
There is an existing driveway to the site right now, and that there is it's a fenced-in area, but there is a gate.
Okay.
Profiles and cross-sections of all streets, driveways, or private roads?
We aren't proposing any impacts or changes to the driveway.
Profiles of all utility layouts?
All we're bringing in is just, well, actually, electric is coming from the meter center that is next to Verizon, as is Telco.
Okay, and what is the color or the finish of the proposed tower and antennas?
The tower itself will be a galvanized finish, which will match the other towers on the property.
And the fact that this is a utility pole, it will meet all of the requirements of a utility pole, not a monopole, which is more stringent?
Correct. It'll be designed as per the NESC code.
So it will not be a collapsible pole?
No.
It's
No.
Like the monopoles?
Yeah, it'll be it'll be designed as a transmission tower, since that's its primary and that's the more stringent code.
Okay.
And so the separation distance to the nearest single-family resident, and one of the reasons is usually it has to do with the pole collapsing, but it's a utility pole. But just for the record, where is the closest single-family?
The closest single-family residence is 330 feet away. That is the residence that's on Lot 20, so Block 42, Lot 20.
And do you know what the current transmission tower is to that?
We are moving this tower is getting moved about 66 feet to the west, so it will be slightly closer. The existing is 412 feet away from that building.
Okay, and then a separation.
You said the nearest residence on lot what?
On Lot 40.
She said 4220.
42, Lot 20. I know that there is a proposed building on Lot 23.
Right.
But I don't believe that that's a residential
It's not.
No,
use.
it's a building.
It's a
What
commercial.
about 1901, and 18? Is there anything built there?
1901. There are nothing on 19 or 1901. Those are both vacant lots. There is a residence on 18, but that will be further away than the 300.
Then Lot 20?
Than Lot 20. Yeah, I think that's just the nature of where the building itself is set on the other lot.
Okay. Now, is there any proposed buildings, or are they buildable lots, 19 and 1901?
I don't necessarily know if they're buildable or not. I know that they're just vacant tree lots at this point.
Okay. Jennifer?
I mean, there are lots on the tax map, but I don't know if there's any conservation restrictions on those lots or not.
Okay.
So there is there a telecommunications monopole or tower, not a JCP&L tower, that is within 1,500 feet of our proposed site?
No, there is not.
Okay. And, maybe we did this distance, did that, we're just whizzing through this. And we talked about our fencing, anti-climbing, how can we do that with our fence?
The fence that we have proposed right now is just a 6-foot-high chain link fence. If you wanted something more anti-climb or more secure, we could put a barbed wire or something like that at the top.
No barbed wire.
Or-
Usually done by fabric. You knit fabric, makes it smaller so you can't get your feet in.
Okay.
That's
Sure.
usually what's done.
Smaller chain link.
Smaller chain
A
link?
smaller
Small-
chain
small.
mesh.
It's like a wrap that goes around the chain link that
Yeah.
is kind of like an.
Well, you could do it either way. You could do it,
Is
you could
someone
either do it
recommending-
with the fabric
Um,
itself, with the small
No.
knitting holes, or you can put the fabric, as she talks about, around the outside.
Do you want us
Okay.
to match what's existing there, that Verizon is there? Because that doesn't have the fabric.
Yeah,
on it.
Verizon's existing is just a standard chain link fence.
They don't have anything but the small knit, don't they? The small holes in the
Or
fabric?
like a pool, like you would see
Like
for
a
a pool.
tighter.
Yeah,
Like
yes.
the one by one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
But there can't be any type of as far as the climbing of the pole. You know, that's up to JCP&L.
Right,
Agreed.
right.
This is about, I think this is around
Fence.
the.
The shelter?
The compound.
Can this pole, is it designed, there'll be 2 carriers, can we get a third on it?
The intention is to design it for a third carrier.
Okay, is the compound going to be pre-designed? According to our ordinance, it needs to be designed to handle that third carrier at the time of approvals, correct?
Well, capacity.
That's
The
where we,
the capacity is there in the area that could be placed.
what about the ground area for the compound?
Well, their compound is not, they have a large enough area, though, that, because you can't build anything inside there.
I understand that.
So
But what I'm saying for the third carrier,
You just have to make sure it's big enough that it can accommodate whatever additional equipment
Correct.
may have to go in place if the third carrier were to come.
exactly, that's correct.
So it could be expanded, yes.
Is there room to expand it? Let me put it that way.
Okay. One thing we had before is they wanted the shed to look like a barn. You have a problem with doing that? No?
Perfect.
Okay.
And also, we will, as a condition of approval, we will take DEP, their sign off, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then there was a comment made that the plan shall be revised so that the setbacks mentioned for all structures existing and proposed graphically shown on the plans match listed in the zoning schedule. Can we do that?
Yes,
Okay, good.
we'll correct that.
And the survey and site plans shall be revised to show the required 50-foot wetlands buffer as well as 300-foot buffer?
Yes, we can
Okay.
show that also on the plan.
You'll show that?
Yes, we will.
I don't have any other questions for Colleen. Did I cover it all?
Mr.
that?
Mallon?
Yeah, I'm just trying to read what I got. The distance to the other building.
That is,
I measure about 270 feet based on the proposed.
I came up with something a little tighter. I was having a hard time kind of fitting our plans together, but I think it'll be about 246 feet.
All right, I don't agree, but I have 270.
All
But if you
right,
have a
I'll
smaller,
take that.
whatever it is, you don't comply with what the requirement is
Correct.
of twice the height. But that is to
But I don't
a,
think that's resident.
That's to the building.
proposed, Yes.
you have no control, though, over when the pole will be removed, correct? That's up to the power company?
Right, but it will be removed, we have been assured by JCP&L that once the new one is built, the same crew will then remove it. So they're not
Okay.
going to build it and then leave it out there.
So, if I understand this, so they're gonna build the new monopole, they're gonna shift the lines over to the new monopole, and then they're gonna decommission the old tower.
Yes.
Correct.
Do you have anything else?
So we got yep, I'm just, the generator,
Yeah, I was gonna ask them.
how is that powered?
It is a diesel generator.
And what type of protection do you have? Because I'm sure you got a reserve tank or something in it. What type of protection do you have for leakage and,
It's an integrated tank, integrated into the design of the generator itself, and it is a double-walled tank, and it does offer 150%.
so it complies with the codes that are required?
Correct, yeah. But it's
Okay.
all within the tank itself.
Right.
And just for the record, the Environmental Commission also asked about that, and Colleen has prepared a signed and sealed letter giving them that information.
Okay, I have no further questions. I think they've addressed everything.
Sir,
Sir,
John, have a seat. Sir, you'll have your opportunity to talk later. Thank you.
I have to go to the bathroom.
All right, thank you very much.
You can go right out that door there, sir. Right there.
go through the side door,
Go through
go
it
to the
on your,
left.
the side you're on, just push it.
Make a left.
Push it and make a left.
On that diesel, since the storm seemed to take
That's the guy to
a
the,
long period of time, how much under full
Mike?
output of that generator, whatever is required, how long will, if you have enough
you should use the microphone.
capacity, you can go?
How many hours can you give?
Number of hours that it can give. That I am not certain of, the exact number of hours. It depends a lot on what the load has to be for the generator.
Colleen, the
Which-
first couple hours are done by backup batteries, correct?
Correct.
Yes, the batteries themselves should last in the 4 to 8 hour range. And then the generator should last for a couple days at least.
Okay, because, you know,
John, can you talk into the mic, please? I have to pick you up. Thank you.
I'll turn it on, too.
Thank you.
That helps. That helps.
Anyway, what I'm getting at, these storms, if you cannot get a fuel truck up to it, you know, all the emergency capability and the cell phones are probably the best communication media going. And in order to ensure that there's enough fuel on site, because I doubt if we're going to see this catastrophe, but to me, you got to be able to operate 3-4 days.
Yeah, they would, obviously come to refuel, but we can check the capacity of the tank versus how long it would last. But I think we are in the range of 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, because with the batteries alone, it's, you get 8 hours.
Just about 8 hours.
And,
No, it's fine.
and in a catastrophe, that's nothing. And people.
Yeah, well, then it would switch to the generator to cover
And-
days.
And another thing, did anybody do a simulation with wind loading on the top of this tower with that array that you have, which is a pretty full array? What is it, the winds down south were 150 miles an hour. Could this withstand that?
This will be designed to the NEC, the National Electric Safety Code. So it'll be designed to withstand what that code dictates.
Okay.
Will that be this is not a monopole and it's not a telecommunications pole. This is a electrical generation pole. So it's designed basically to their standards, correct?
Well, it's really designed to make sure it covers both of the standards, the NESC and also TIA 222. So it will be designed to the more stringent of the two codes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have,
Mr. Mallon?
do you know how much about the generator system, how it works? They have systems where they have an AGS system, automatic generator start. When the batteries
Yes.
get down to a certain point, they run so long, they recharge the batteries, then it shuts off. When the batteries get down in voltage again, the generator restarts itself and runs for whatever it is, 3-4 hours to recharge. I take it that's the type of system they would have here.
There's an automatic transfer
God bless
switch
you.
that would transfer as necessary.
So it's a cyclic recharge.
Exactly right. And I think that gives you a much longer type of coverage than just the generator runs continuously.
Plus, it's cleaner power.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
I have no other questions for Colleen.
Okay. Any further questions from the board? Professionals? Okay.
None? Not for this witness.
I think it's Paul, where are you? You're hiding. Couple photo studies they don't have. Educational professional background, please.
Yes, again, my name for the record is Paul Rickey, R-I-C-C-I. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I've been licensed since the year 2000. I'm also a member of the American Institute for Certified Planners since 1999. I have a master's degree in city and regional planning from Rutgers University, which I received in 1997. I currently operate under Rickey Planning LLC. I'm largely a sole practitioner. I'm a planning consultant to 5 municipalities. I've testified in 20 to 21 counties, approximately 200 boards in the state. A very, very long time ago, the firm I worked for represented Howell, and I've actually sat, I guess, from a meeting or two for this board in the past.
We'll accept your credentials.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Paul, you have, let's get down to the pictures first, and then I'd like you to address the relief I'm seeking.
Okay.
But you took some photographs, correct?
I did.
And you have an aerial, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let's mark the aerial as A21, and your photos, we'll mark them as A22, and you need me to help you
Okay,
with
the
these.
aerial I can take off, but the boards here are mounted. I have separate copies if you'd rather me.
Yes,
Please.
Yes, here, I'll pass
Okay.
them out, we'll use,
And do I want to mark this so if this is the official then?
He'll mark him, Tom.
Okay.
Tom,
Okay. And I thought we
I'll
were going
pass
to be digital, so I only have 8 more copies. then.
okay, that's fine.
Here, I'll get him. Thank you.
He needs to mark this one. No, not that. He marked the board.
Okay.
Here. I'll just leave it there. Go ahead and pass that, Jerry.
Thank you.
Sorry, did you need one back? No, I think Jamie needs one back.
If I may just qualify the exhibit?
Yeah, just tell us what they are and who took the pictures.
Sure. It's entitled Site ID W721. I took the pictures in October 2018. Essentially, these are photo simulations that show the existing and proposed conditions. What we did was we prepared a photo location key map. That's the aerial here on the left. It's entitled Photo Location Key Map, AT&T Site W721 Oak Glen Road, Howell, New Jersey. And you can see on this map that it has 4 dots. Those dots correspond to the photographs that are marked on the bottom. Photograph number 1 is taken on Oak Glen Road. It's taken at a distance of 450 feet west of the site. It's the closest point from a public right-of-way, and it shows the maximum potential of a visual impact. In the bottom right of the photograph, it shows the existing view. In the top, it shows the proposed view. Here, you can see that, the existing lattice tower in the bottom right is being replaced with a more sleek, stealth monopole design. Still, you can see that the transmission arms are part of the new tower, and you can see in the top the 27-foot addition, and we're showing both the proposed AT&T and Verizon antenna on the top of the tower at this location. Photograph number 2, it's taken on Lakewood Farmingdale Road, close to the intersection with Oak Glen Road. It's taken at a distance of approximately 660 feet. This is the existing commercial site at that location. You can see the for sale sign. Everyone probably knows this site. You can see, even at a distance of 660 feet, the tower already, it's only being moved approximately 66 feet. It already becomes a lower element in the horizon, one that's consistent with the tree line and the like. And I note that this is an area of the community that I have to look around to try to find locations of where the tower is visible, because as shown on the aerial, in the area, the township benefits from a significant amount of woodlands. So that the visibility that I'm showing is at points where I could find the tower. But largely while driving around the area, it was my finding that at most locations along Vienna Road to the south and the like, the tower is largely blocked by existing trees and vegetation. Photograph number 3 is now taken at approximately 750 feet southwest of the site. That's at the intersection of Vienna Road and Oak Glen Road. And here again, as we move further away, now you can just see the very top of the tower in its proposed condition. And I had to drive around multiple locations to be able to find the tower, to be able to show a simulation here. And then photograph number 4, what we did was, we're really showing the equipment compound in this location. So what we did is we show, it's actually simulated in the picture, but when you go to picture number 5, we zoomed in to show that in this context, the equipment compound is located beyond the existing Verizon compound. You can see now the pole is now pulled in front of the Verizon compound, and that's one of the reasons why it had to be located 66 feet, not 50 feet as required by your ordinance. But again, here we're showing, we anticipated that the board would want to see the continuation of the barn-like structure. So in the very back, beyond the existing Verizon compound, at that back right portion, you can see a very small portion of the compound from the roadway. And here it matches that barn-like structure as well. So I think the finding is overall that there will be very minimal local visual impact associated with a small 27-foot increase of the tower.
Okay, Paul, what I would like you to do now, and I'm just going to hand it over to you, is Verizon already received their use variance. We're doing an expansion of a non-conforming use. Verizon also will need a height variance, and AT&T will also need a height variance. So can you and the other variances that I need. I'm going to ask you to please explain them, talk about our proposed installation and what the current law is, and positive and negative criteria, and all sorts of fun things.
Sure, and I think you're professionals, and I think it's being very clearly articulated, the requirements for the D2, the expansion of a non-conforming use variance. We have the same requirements as a D1 variance. We need to show both the positive and the negative criteria, and I'll go through that. But it's clear that the courts have recognized that, well, they essentially suggest that boards should view the negative criteria with greater liberality. The reason being because if the use is already there, it's less likely to create new negative impacts in this context. And I'll go through that testimony, but here again, what we're trying to do is adhere to your ordinance to the maximum extent possible. While we're largely in a residential district, we are in a utility right-of-way, and when you look at the goals of your wireless ordinance, we're going to advance, and I'll go through that, at least two of those, and that's largely to co-locate and to minimize essentially by minimizing the number of new towers in the community. And that's what we're trying to achieve here. And we think we're doing so in a manner that is going to result in a minimal change to this area of the community. Should I go through all the variances? Okay.
Please.
Okay. So,
Quickly, though.
okay. The D2 variance we mentioned, the D6 height variance, right, to permit a height of 165 feet to the top, not to the center line as testified to previously by the site engineer, where the underlying zoning permits 35 feet because it does not anticipate wireless telecommunications facilities in this area. Regarding the side yard setbacks of 25.81 feet to the proposed monopole antennas and 28.77 feet to the proposed AT&T equipment compound are proposed, where side yard setback of 60 feet is required. I note that 13.6 feet exists to the existing lattice tower today and 24.5 feet to the Verizon equipment today. So in this context, we're going no closer to that existing property line than exists. And as I just showed on the photo simulation, we're locating it behind the Verizon equipment. So largely my testimony will be for the bulk variance relief, that it's a better zoning alternative because it's the least visible location, and we're not encroaching any further into the side yard setbacks than exist today. So we believe it's a better zoning alternative in this context for that reason. The fall zone equal to the height of the tower is required from adjoining lot lines. In this case, that's 165 feet with 36.4 feet is proposed. An extension of the tower to accommodate new wireless equipment should not exceed 10 feet above the existing tower height. In no case shall the tower exceed 150 feet in height. And here we're doing a 27-foot increase. Location from existing tower is being rebuilt. 66 feet is proposed for a maximum of 50 feet. That's the actual distance from the base of the tower that it can be moved per your ordinance. And I already largely provided that testimony. Here, the rationale for it is that, number one, the location of that tower is based on structural engineering requirements, and as well as the fact that the existing Verizon compound would be in that location of where 50 feet is. So we're trying to meet both structural location requirements and also the fact that the site's already encumbered by that existing Verizon compound that's located in front of the tower. Also, a landscape buffer, minimum of 8 feet high and 10 feet wide is required for your wireless ordinance. And here you've heard the testimony that essentially the applicant is willing to do the maximum landscaping permissible under the JCP&L, but however, we can't provide landscaping at the height required by your ordinance per se, because JCP&L just does not allow that in that utility right of way. I think the board can understand the conflicts between trees and power lines, and for that reason, we cannot meet the full intent of your buffering ordinance. I think the board knows the criteria for wireless telecommunications towers well. And to meet the positive criteria, the issuance of an FCC license generally establishes that we promote the general welfare. We also have to demonstrate that the site is particularly well suited as well. You heard from the radio frequency engineer that established the need and the gap in the minimum height necessary, also as per JCP&L in terms of the clearances necessary. So we're at the lowest height that we can be in that regard. From From a land use planning perspective here, while it's in a residential district, it's clearly in a utility corridor. Again, when we co-locate on existing towers, and I largely can, even if the tower is being rebuilt, it's largely a co-location. There's no net increase of wireless towers occurring on the property. So despite the fact that this area has a large, it's a residential-based district, we feel that we've done an excellent job of finding a location within a large utility corridor and at a site that I demonstrated has a large amount of woodland surrounding it, that the tower is largely undetectable in most locations. And I had to drive around to really find spots to show where it's visible in this context. In terms of the negative criteria, I know the board is aware that we rely on the SICA four-part balancing test, and that's a test that asks us to balance the benefits of the application versus any detriments. And the first part of the test asks us to identify the public interest. And we know that wireless telecommunications, I should have drank something before I came up here, promote the general welfare of the community. And why is that? Here we have FirstNet on the tower. You have the ability to have family interactions. You have the ability to have access to prompt, reliable information. And I can go on and on. It's well established that there's significant benefits associated with these facilities. The second part of the test asks us to identify the negative impacts. And we know that wireless telecommunications facilities are a passive use. They don't create traffic with the exception of a maintenance visit from time to time. They don't create new population demand on sewer and water. And they don't really create noise. I mean, if a generator kicks on, that's during an emergency, not really regulated by noise ordinances. The only potential negative impact from these facilities is the visual impact. And I think we've demonstrated from a visual perspective, it will be localized and minimalistic at best. And it's the least obtrusive means of providing coverage in this context. A mere 27-foot increase. I note the landmark case in Smart was a case where there was a 90-foot tower that was raised to 140 feet, the case that we base our testimony on. And the court said that was merely a 50-foot increase in that tower when it bordered directly adjacent to a residential property. And here we've demonstrated that our setbacks are substantially more significant than that. So we believe we have a very strong application that meets several purposes of your ordinance as well. In terms of the third part of the test asks us, can we mitigate any of the visual impacts? And here, we're trying to match the existing galvanized look in the look of the utilities along the corridor. I believe that's been achieved. And we're also trying to match the equipment compound to be a barn-like structure to advance your some of your context-sensitive design that's consistent with the Verizon application. So that's what we're proposing. We believe that's the best alternative considering the context of this site and the corridor as well. And then the fourth part of the test asks us to balance the benefits versus the negatives. And I think I've clearly shown that the negatives are minimal and potentially visible only within a very small remote area of the community. Regarding the bulk variances, I think the board can, if they choose to subsume under the Paleo decision. However, just to touch upon them, I already touched upon the bulk variances somewhat as part of my testimony. And let me just touch upon the height again. And I think the board recognizes when we review wireless telecommunications facilities, the height is intrinsically tied for the use. If we don't have sufficient height, we don't have a use. So we largely review those collectively together, and that's why the radio frequency engineer is so important, is to demonstrate that height in our engineer and the need for that height. And I even note that if you look at, again, the SMART case, it said it was well settled that when height is necessary to effectuate a use, that fact in and of itself becomes a special reason. So we believe that the height is appropriate in this context and can be justified under the facts presented. Regarding the bulk variances, the side yard setback variances, again, I largely touched upon this. We've, under the C2 criteria, where we can demonstrate that the site advances a purpose of zoning, and that gets drilled down under the Poland decision in terms of the positive elements of this application. And in terms of the negative criteria and applying that, why this is a better zoning alternative, I think we've shown that we're no closer to the side lot line, and we're pushing it behind the existing compound, where it has the least visibility from the public right-of-way. So we think it's a better zoning alternative in the context of this application. Again, this regarding the 50-foot separation setback, this is based upon keeping the base of the tower away from the existing Verizon compound, and also based upon engineering principles. This is a transmission tower, so we receive feedback as per the site engineer as to where the spacing of these towers can be located. It's not just out of whim.
So in your professional opinion, if the board was to grant this application, it would not be,
Am I going on too long?
yes, you are, but
Okay.
that's okay, we loved it. This would not be a detriment to the zoning ordinances or master plan?
No, I believe I clearly shown that it meets both the positive and negative criteria, and this application would result in sound land use planning.
Great, thank you so much.
Ms. Beam?
I'm sorry.
I agree with the testimony. I think, number one, yes, this property is located in a residential zone, but it is clearly a utility right-of-way. And it's a transmission right-of-way. It's not even like distribution. It's a high-tension transmission right-of-way. And that they're taking a lattice tower, turning it into a monopole, which is a benefit from an aesthetic standpoint. I think that the bulk variances become subsumed within the use variance per court decision. And I do agree that the benefits outweigh the detriments, and I would take no exception to the board acting favorably on the application.
Just
Mr. Chairman, and one further thing, I think the setbacks that they are kind of a function of the narrowness of the lot.
True.
So they really, they placed it in an area where there's existing transmission line. The lot is very narrow, and with the height, it's not, they really can't do anything.
Well, I just wanted to ask, how many transmission towers are there? Separate lines?
It's a double row of transmission towers. Even by the pictures, you can see there
No,
are
I know,
multiple towers. I don't know the exact number.
3 on this lot. I think
I
there's 3.
see
I think
three.
there's 3 on this
I
lot.
see 3 separate lines.
So
That's,
And I do agree, having done some work for PSE&G, that there are very strict requirements about separation between transmission lines. There's requirements to separate the transmission lines themselves, and then nothing can be within a certain distance of a transmission line, and it's a factor of what the KV is of the lines, and the higher the KV, the greater the separation needs to be. So that would lend itself to justification for the increased height as well, because this is not a typical monopole for pure cellular purposes, that it's a dual purpose. And it is in keeping with the goals of our ordinance, which are looking to locate these cell towers or these antennas on existing facilities. While this is new, I think it's an improvement. I think going from a lattice tower, which has a greater visual impact and has a greater width at the base, a monopole is a sleeker design, and even though it's a little higher, I think when you look at that right-of-way, the visual impact is there already. The transmission towers are there.
well, see, there's existing monopole towers there.
Correct.
It's more in line with these.
I agree.
What's
I
existing.
think that it's a good location. I think that it accomplishes to solve a gap in service, and so I take no exception to the testimony as provided.
Mr. Chairman, one further thing, just so you note, while the tower's 165, the antennas will go to 166.
Correct.
I am complete with all of my witnesses.
Okay. Any further questions from the board?
I just have one question. Looking at photo number 4, you took that picture from Oak Glen Road, looking, but I just don't know which.
I was standing up on existing, we'll call it, what do you want to call it? There was some round tire, what do you want to call it, like, almost like telephone type poles. I was standing above that, standing on that to get the picture above the fence line. Is that your question?
No, with the way this picture is, so that's,
He's shooting.
yeah, so that's Oak Glen Road. I'm going to look in and I'll see the pole and then I'll see the barn.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to clear on that. Okay. That's it. Yeah, I see. So he's standing there looking, and there's the barn right there. Okay, I got it, thank you.
Okay.
That's it, sir.
Any further questions, comments from professionals?
No, sir.
Any from the board? Seeing none, can I have a motion to open to public for questions of the witnesses and of this applicant?
Motion to open, public.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Armada. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? If there's anyone in the audience wish to come forward and ask questions of the witnesses at this time, please come forward. Be sworn in.
but they don't fall down.
Sir?
Not important. For the record,
I'll swear you in first. Swear the testimony you'll give tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
So just state your name, please,
Lawrence August,
and your address, please.
639 Oak Glen Road, Howell, New Jersey. Before I begin, for the record, I'm gonna read the certified letter that I received. Please take notice that Singular Wireless, PCS LLC, AT&T, and Singular Partnership doing business as Verizon and Verizon jointly applicants filed the application with the Township of Howell Zoning Board Adjustment, Use Variance, Height Variance, Bulk Variance, Site Plan Approval to replace a 130-foot JCP&L transmission tower with a 165-foot JCP&L transmission tower. Verizon will relocate its communication antennas at 153 feet on the new tower. AT&T will install 16 antennas at 163 feet. The new tower will also install related equipment on the base of the tower. The top height of the antennas will be 166 feet. The property, which is subject to the application, is located easterly side of Oak Glen Road, County Road 547, Howell, New Jersey. The proposed tower is located at AR6 zoning district and is designated on the tax maps, Block 42, Lot 22. Applicants are seeking the following. Now, I'm going to go over this use variance.
Sir, let me ask you this if I can, because we all know that the notice is published, you have it.
I did that for
But
the record.
I understand, and you are on the record, but I would just ask, Mr. Chair, that if we could get to the specific questions, and no one is going to deny you the right to do that, but the notice is what the notice is. It's been accepted by the board. So if you can base your questions on the notice and on the testimony.
I know that everybody's tired. It's late in the night. And if you didn't interrupt me, I probably would be done with it already.
Well, sir, I would interrupt you to say that you really shouldn't continue reading the notice. Please
Yeah,
continue.
we know what the
I'm gonna
notice
go over
states.
this notice so that I can use that as my guide. And
Can-
I'll eliminate some of them.
Okay.
I'm looking at the variance for distance to residence. I can see it from my house. It's ugly, and now it's bigger and uglier. But that's not the point. Variance for required landscaping. Now, I've lived here, and my lovely lady lived here. She's in a much better place. Over 40 years. And 40 years ago, JCP&L and its infinite stupidity, what did they do? They used Agent Orange on that whole power line. The same Agent Orange that killed many of our young men. And it killed all the fauna there. Now, I'm going to connect that to landscaping. If you want to put landscaping around that tower, then use the fauna that's indigenous with that area.
Well, sir, they can't, this is a right-of-way. This is electrical transmission right-of-way. Things have to be.
We're talking about landscaping.
Sir, we've already been through that through the testimony. As far as the landscaping we can't require landscaping up underneath that transmission line. There's certain distances, certain heights.
The area
Can
around
grow.
it.
They,
In the right-of-way, in its entirety, JCP&L regulates the landscaping. So it has nothing to do
Period.
with this applicant, it has to do with JCP&L. They don't allow for the landscaping. So technically, our ordinance requires it, they're physically unable to provide it, and that's why they've asked for the relief. And to be perfectly honest, we could make them plant it, and then tomorrow JCP will come in and take it down.
take it down.
So I understand what you're trying to say, but at the end of the day, because this is a transmission line in a utility right-of-way, which I think is what the chairman is trying to get at, while, yes, they need relief from our ordinance for landscaping, the BPU, which regulates the utility companies, and JCP&L and the National Electric Safety Code don't allow for it. So they physically can't do it.
In other words, they don't allow for it, but it was all right for them to kill it in the first place.
Sir, we don't have any control over that.
I think that the tower is ugly. And when it comes down to it, all these people with all their college educations and college degrees are getting a paycheck, and then when it comes down to it, wait a minute, let me finish.
Sir, no. Direct question to this tower. That's it. This is a comment. A direct question to the tower.
Verizon and AT&T and all this hoopla that we talked about of what they're going to do for emergency and all this stuff. You know what? That's not why they're doing this. They're doing this to make money with their little stupid cell phones.
We don't look, this board can't look, this board can't look at monetary gains or losses or anything. This
Well,
board, we can't look at that. We can't even take that into consideration. According to the MLUL, we can't. We cannot do that.
Well, the fact of the matter, they are.
I can't help it. This board, I can't, we can't have testimony as far as monetary.
You're taking into view of what they're saying, that all this thing, that they're the really good guys and they wear a white hat and they are helping first responders and all this stuff.
Let's direct the questions to the tower. As far as the first responders, that's going national. They have a bandwidth that's going to be dedicated straight for that, so they have communications in a time of crisis. That's all they're saying. They're not putting a feather in anybody's cap. They're giving that brand for emergency responders. That's police, medical, whatever it is, in the time of a crisis.
Well,
that's all it is.
Bottom line, and I'm not going to say any more, they build a bigger and uglier tower for their own gain.
Okay.
Done.
Thank you, sir.
I really don't understand why I'm the only person outside of this august board that you folks have come here and sat here getting closer and closer to midnight, and there's not one other person that came here other than yours truly.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the audience wish to come forward? Seeing none, can I have a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Donnell, seconded by Mr. Amata. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Professionals, any further comments or questions at this time? Board?
Further.
Any further? Would you like to give a summary or a summation?
Just please approve this application.
That's a good summary.
Like that. Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'd like to make a motion in this application, based on our professionals' testimony and all of your professional testimonies, that this application, I see it to be in the positive, and I don't see much negative, and my motion is to approve the application.
I'll second it, and I feel as though this tower is going to improve communications throughout the area. Some may be trivial communications, but a lot of it is essential, so.
Okay,
I
have a
vote
motion by Mr. O'Donnell, seconded by Mr. Amata. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Amata,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Posh. Yes. Mr. San Clemente,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco. Yes. And Chairman Nansen.
I would just like to say, according to our ordinance, and I've been on this board a long, long time, and I've heard a lot of cell tower cases. Some good, some not so good. But this one, I remember when Verizon was before the board on their original, they wanted to put up a cell tower in the near vicinity, and we requested that they search out the JCP&L towers to put that. They did back then, and we requested, I remember clear as day, the equipment shelter looked like a barn, not an equipment shelter. They did. In light of our ordinances asking to go to either, township properties or existing monopoles, existing towers, existing structures to put these antennas on, I think you're well in light of our ordinance, and I really appreciate that. I see no detriment for number one, is there's existing monopoles there. They're transmission lines, not cell towers, but it's existing. You've got 3 different types of transmission lines there. You've got lattice tower, you got monopoles, and then you got wooden telephone poles. So my vote is yes, and I want to thank you for coming in to use existing. Not only that, but designing something that would fit into that area to where it just doesn't look like a cell tower standing up there. It's in a transmission area. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'll send it to him and I'll put it in our file. Perfect, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. All right.
Orozco.
Good, how are you? Been a long time? I know,
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Before you do that,
Motion by Mr. Moretti.
before you adjourn,
Hold on a second. Motion withdrawn.
I just want to remind all the members
Oh,
that our regular meeting is next week. The following week is our special meeting, and the week after that is our first meeting in November. So we have 3 more back-to-back Mondays with meetings.
correct.
Okay? Thank you.
Back to back to back to back. Back.
I don't need the board, just paper, please, so I can just. Thank you.
Pretty much.
Are you far, you're so far away. Are you still there? Wow. You were gone and you came back
You can have it.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn
for
now?
a long time, for a while.
Motion by Mr. Motta, seconded by Mr. Moretti. All in favor? All opposed? Zoning Board adjustments adjourn at 9:58.